She walked into the lobby like any other day. No heels, no designer bag, no last name that would make anyone stop and stare. The receptionist barely looked up. The security guard pointed her toward the exit without asking questions. To them, she was just another nobody in thrift store shoes, looking for a job she'd never get. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that she wasn't here for a job. She wasn't here for help. She was here to test the people running her empire. Because in exactly 7 minutes, the elevator would open, and the chairman of the entire company would step out, look past every polished executive in the room, and call that nobody one word that would shatter every jaw in the building. Wife. The morning was brisk, the kind of chilled air that clung to fabric and whispered of autumn change. Lena stood outside the towering glass facade of Carver Holdings, clutching a simple canvas tote and wearing a faded cream blouse tucked into navy blue trousers. She didn't belong, at least not to the security guard eyeing her from the glass booth beside the revolving doors. She looked up, eyes tracing the height of the building, where sunlight bounced off mirrored windows, and the company logo gleamed like a monument to power. People in tailored suits moved past her with purpose, scanning badges and flashing smiles that belonged to a different world. She hesitated. One step closer, then another. Her shoes were plain, almost quiet, like her. She stopped in front of the main entrance and reached for the polished steel handle. "Excuse me," a firm voice snapped. Lena turned. A uniformed guard with a square jaw and narrowed eyes stood before her, clipboard in hand. "You can't go in there," he said flatly. "This entrance is for staff and clients only." "I have a meeting," she answered, her voice gentle but certain. "With whom?" "I just need to speak with the board secretary." She didn't offer a name. The guard chuckled. "Lady, we've had 4 influencers try to sneak in this week. Go around back. The visitor center is down the block." "No," she said. "I'm supposed to come in through here." His brow furrowed. "And I'm supposed to let random people wander into a billion-dollar company? I don't think so." Lena took out her phone, tapping the screen, but the signal lagged. "I was told to meet Mr. Adams here. I can—" "You don't get it, do you?" The guard interrupted, now annoyed. "People like you don't just show up unannounced. This isn't a charity." His voice grew louder. "You want to make deliveries? Go around back with the rest of the service staff." A few passers-by began to slow, glancing at the commotion. One woman in heels giggled under her breath. "Maybe she's lost," another whispered. Lena felt the heat rising to her cheeks, but remained calm. "I'm not delivering anything," she said. Ma'am, I'm asking you nicely." The guard cut her off again. "Step away from the door before I have to escort you out." Her fingers trembled, but she nodded. "All right." She stepped back. The crowd moved again. The door spun. The world continued like she didn't exist. But inside her chest, something stirred. Not humiliation, not defeat, but a quiet anger. Not for herself, for how quickly people judge what they don't understand. She turned and walked to the side of the building, not because she accepted the insult, but because she knew something they didn't. The world always assumes the woman in plain clothes is a nobody, until someone powerful says otherwise. Inside the 13th floor boardroom of Carver Holdings, leather chairs circled a table of polished mahogany, the kind of table only important men sat around. The morning meeting had started 15 minutes late, as usual, because the senior VP liked to enter last, holding a triple-shot espresso he never drank. Conversation bounced between expansion projections and digital investment strategies. No one noticed the single vacant seat near the end, one that had never been filled since Mr. Carver's death. "If we're pushing the launch to Q4, marketing needs to restructure the narrative. We can't afford a dip in investor confidence," said Mr. Klein, the COO, adjusting his cufflinks. "You're assuming investor confidence is even real," muttered someone across the table, prompting a dry laugh. At the head sat Leo Carver, the current chairman and CEO. He was silent, fingers folded, jaw sharp, his eyes somewhere far away. They always said Leo was his father's son, sharp as a blade, cold as steel, and twice as difficult to read. Few in the room dared challenge him, but most privately speculated that his recent absence of press appearances and canceled interviews hinted at trouble. Whispers had swirled for months. Was Leo stepping down? Was the mysterious woman spotted at his estate a new girlfriend? Or something else? But none dared ask. "Mr. Carver," said one board member finally, Do we proceed with the Shanghai contract or renegotiate terms? They're waiting for confirmation. Leo blinked, slowly returning to the present. No, he said calmly. We wait. May I ask why? Because someone's about to walk through that door who will change this conversation entirely, he said, and then rose. There was a moment of confusion. A chair squeaked. Eyes followed Leo as he left the room without another word. Where's he going? Whispered the CFO to the woman beside him. She shrugged, nervous. Meanwhile, in the lobby below, Lena stood near the back exit, quietly watching as a secretary led in an elegant woman in heels, barely glancing her way. She felt invisible again, until the elevator dinged and everything changed. Out stepped Leo. He wasn't in a rush. He wasn't flanked by assistants or trailed by a PR team. Just him, in a charcoal suit, walking directly toward her, like he knew exactly where she would be. The receptionist jumped up. Mr. Carver? Not now, he said simply. Lena looked up. You came. He reached out, took her hand gently. You shouldn't have had to wait. Murmurs erupted behind the front desk. Phones were lifted, cameras discreetly aimed. Sir, the same guard from before began, flustered. She tried to get inside without clearance. I didn't know. That's my wife, Leo said clearly without raising his voice. Silence hit like a thunderclap. Every keyboard froze. Every eye widened. Escort her, Leo added, glancing at the guard. No, she owns more of this company than you ever will. And just like that, the tide turned. Lena didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She just nodded softly as Leo guided her through the lobby, eyes trailing them like shadows. In 10 steps, she had gone from invisible to unforgettable, but Lena knew better than anyone. This was only the beginning, because power isn't always loud. Sometimes it walks in wearing dusty shoes, and the world doesn't recognize it until it's too late. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, except for the soft hum of the motor and the rapid rhythm of Lena's heart. She didn't look up at Leo, but she could feel the weight of his presence, steady, familiar, the same man who used to sit beside her in dusty libraries before anyone knew his name, before power and press releases consumed his hours. As the doors slid open, the hallway unfurled before them, glassy, sterile, expensive. People froze at the sight of them walking side by side. Some tilted their heads, lips parting in disbelief. Leo pushed open the boardroom door without knocking. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The room turned to him in sync, a dozen sharply dressed executives blinking like stage actors missing their cue. What's going on? Asked the head of legal, already sensing a derailment. Leo simply stepped aside and gestured toward Lena. Everyone, this is my wife, he said, as if it were the most mundane announcement in the world. Her name is Lena. She's here because she deserves to be. In fact, she's the only person in this room, besides myself, who carries the Carver legacy in full. A silence descended, heavier than any merger negotiation ever held in that room. Lena looked at the long table. The empty chair near the end now held a strange gravity, as if waiting just for her. And she knew why. Leo hadn't placed it there as decoration. It had always belonged to her. Klein, the COO, cleared his throat. Forgive my confusion, but the board has never been informed of a Mrs. Carver. That's because her last name was never a tool, Leo replied. We kept it private, but today things have changed. Lena's hands tightened slightly around the strap of her bag. I didn't come to claim titles, she said, her voice clear, calm. I came because I was tired of watching a company built on a dream forget its roots. That's when she glided, toward the seat and took it. Some board members stared with restrained contempt, others with curiosity, and a few with dawning recognition. Because 10 years ago, when the late Mr. Carver began building the second phase of his empire, he had one anonymous partner, a quiet voice who helped him draft the internal ethics code, restructure community partnerships, and define the family trust. That partner was a 20-something legal prodigy from a rural town with no desire for fame. Her name was Lena. This is unprecedented, muttered one executive. No, this is overdue, Leo said. And one more thing, every strategic decision from this quarter forward will require Lena's input. She now holds 30% equity in Carver Holdings, effective immediately. A wave of stunned reactions swept across the table. Phones vibrated beneath suit jackets, messages firing off like gunshots. No one dared speak, until one voice finally broke through. "So," said a woman from HR, raising an eyebrow, "you're telling us the woman we nearly had removed by security is our new boss?" Leo turned, calm but unapologetic. "No," he said, glancing back at Lena. "She's not your new boss. She was always your boss. You just never bothered to ask who she was." The boardroom eventually cleared, but Lena stayed seated, fingers lightly touching the grain of the table, as if mapping old memories hidden beneath its polish. The room had emptied physically, but the residue of disbelief still clung to the walls. Leo stood near the tall windows, arms crossed, watching the skyline. "They'll come around," he said without turning. Lena didn't respond. Her mind wasn't in the room anymore. It was 4 years back, in a hospital corridor that reeked of antiseptic and blood. "Do you remember when your father asked me to help rewrite the governance charter?" she asked quietly. Leo nodded. "He never told anyone why. Only said he trusted your judgment." "He trusted me," Lena echoed, "but he also asked me to disappear, said the company needed one face, not two. He wanted you to shine without the shadow of a second legacy dragging you down." Leo turned now slowly. "And you agreed. You walked away." "Not because I wanted to," she said, her voice still calm, "but because that's how we protect things that matter. You were the heir. I was the ghost behind the curtain. And I didn't mind, until today." Leo walked toward her. "Why now, Lena?" She looked up at him. "Because this place no longer feels like the dream we helped build. It's turning into a machine that only serves itself. And because today, outside those doors, your people looked me in the eye and saw nothing. They saw a delivery girl, a stranger, someone to discard. That's not the company your father envisioned. That's not what we built." Leo sat beside her, shoulders heavy. "I should have told them sooner." "No," she said. "You weren't the one who forgot me. They did." Just then the door reopened. It was Marcus, the family lawyer. He looked nervous. "Lena, something's happened. I got a call from Singapore. The audit team found discrepancies in the offshore trusts, large ones." "Define large," Leo said sharply. "Over 60 million, hidden across shell corporations." Marcus took a breath. "They were registered under the name L. Carver." Lena stiffened. "That's not me." "I know," Marcus replied quickly. "That's why I think someone's using your identity." Leo stood up instantly. "We need the internal security team. Pull every login, every time stamp. I want names." Marcus hesitated. "That's not all. The person responsible isn't just embezzling. They've been leaking internal proposals to your competitors." Lena closed her eyes, a deep chill running through her spine. "Someone wanted to erase me completely," she whispered. Leo nodded grimly. "And they nearly succeeded." Outside the boardroom, whispers had already started to spread, but none of them could have predicted what would come next. Because the woman they once dismissed hadn't just returned with equity and a title, she had returned with unfinished business. And the first thread of betrayal had only just been pulled. The data team worked overnight. Lena barely slept. She sat alone in her study at home, not the one in the penthouse she shared with Leo, but the quiet back room filled with books and yellowing documents from her years in legal consultancy. A single desk lamp illuminated her face, casting long shadows on the wall. Her laptop pinged, a message from Marcus. "Found something, 8:00 a.m. tomorrow, conference room B." She replied with one word, "Understood." The next morning, she arrived before anyone else. Her steps were silent, her presence still unfamiliar to many employees who glanced at her then quickly looked away. They didn't know whether to greet her or ignore her. Power that walks softly is always the most confusing. At precisely 8 Marcus entered with a folder, thick with printouts and digital logs. Leo came moments later, looking grimmer than usual. "Tell us," Lena said. Marcus laid out screenshots, wire transfer logs, and login histories. "It started 9 months ago. Small withdrawals are hidden inside Shell subcontracting invoices. None of them were questioned because the amounts were buried under larger contracts." He flipped the page. The logins used a backdoor that was created 5 years ago by a senior IT executive who no longer works here, but someone reactivated that backdoor recently. Lena narrowed her eyes. "And the name tied to that reactivation?" Marcus exhaled. Carla Jennings, executive assistant to CFO Klein. Leo's eyebrows twitched. Klein? He's been with the company since my father's era. And precisely why no one suspected him, Marcus said. But Carla, she's the one who handled system passwords and scheduled all high-level access meetings. And here's where it gets worse. We traced one of the IPs used to leak confidential pitch decks. It came from Klein's vacation home in the Hamptons. Leo clenched his jaw. He leaked strategy to our competitors? Yes, Marcus nodded. And one of them is now preparing to launch a similar product, 2 months before ours. Lena stood, silent, processing. Her mind didn't just see betrayal. It saw structure. It saw how trust was weaponized, how silence was exploited. She turned to Leo. Do you trust me to handle this? Lena, he said without hesitation, I've trusted you more than anyone else since the day we met. She nodded once, then picked up the folder. Then let's play this quietly. No suspension, no confrontation. Not yet. If Klein wants to steal from me, let him. I'll let him dig until his hands are bloody. Leo smiled slightly. That's the woman I married. Later that afternoon, Lena returned to the office dressed the same way she had been the day she was turned away. Simple blouse, no makeup, no heels. As she walked past the same security guard, he stood straighter, eyes full of apology. But she didn't stop. She had bigger things to dismantle than his judgment. Inside the boardroom, Klein greeted her with a stiff smile, not realizing she was already 3 steps ahead. He poured himself a coffee. Quite the dramatic re-entry you made, Mrs. Carver. The staff can't stop talking about it. Let them talk, she replied calmly. They're not the ones I'm here to impress. His smile faltered for a second. We have the investor brunch tomorrow. I assume you'll be attending. Absolutely, she said, her eyes steady. It'll be a day to remember. Because Lena already knew what he didn't. By tomorrow afternoon, everything Klein thought he controlled would come crashing down. The investor brunch was held at the Carver Tower's rooftop garden, a glass-walled haven above the noise of the city. White linens rippled in the breeze, champagne flutes clinked gently, and violinists filled the air with graceful melodies. Everything appeared flawless, until Lena stepped in, dressed again in her signature simplicity. A pale blue shirt and slacks. She walked in without announcement. Conversations paused, eyes drifted, and whispers bloomed. Some investors didn't recognize her. Others did, but weren't sure how to approach her. She didn't mind. She wasn't here to be admired. She was here to end a performance. Across the terrace stood CFO Klein, laughing with a group of foreign investors. He caught sight of Lena and stiffened for a fraction of a second before regaining his composure. Mrs. Carver, he greeted, holding a glass of champagne. Always a surprise. Good surprises are rare, she replied, her voice soft but sharp. You should enjoy this one. Then she turned to the stage and gestured to Marcus, who adjusted the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus said, voice calm, the Carver family would like to share a short presentation before brunch begins. It's a celebration of legacy, integrity, and vision. The projector flickered on behind them. At first, it showed archival photos. Mr. Carver Sr. in the early days, young Leo, and even a few grainy shots of Lena's early contributions from behind the scenes. Then the tone shifted. The slides changed to email screenshots, IP logs, financial forensics, and company names tied to dummy corporations. Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Klein's smile vanished. His fingers twitched. What is this? He demanded, stepping forward. This is the truth, Lena said evenly, walking toward him. The story of a man who thought no one would notice when trust was sold for personal gain, who thought he could steal millions, leak our vision, and destroy what Carver Holdings stood for. But he forgot something. This company has more than one guardian. Marcus stepped in. Mr. Klein, this morning the board reviewed all the evidence. Your accounts have been frozen. Legal proceedings are underway. You are hereby removed from all duties, effective immediately. Silence fell like an avalanche. Klein stood frozen. His mouth opened, closed. You don't have the authority? She does. Leo's voice cut in from behind, firm and clear. You've been reporting to my wife for the past 48 hours. You just didn't know it. Klein's face crumpled. The guards at the terrace door approached. Wait, please, he pleaded. You don't understand? No, Lena interrupted. You didn't understand. Loyalty isn't weakness, and quiet doesn't mean blind. As he was escorted out, she turned back to the stunned audience. This isn't a scandal, she said. It's a rebirth. Carver Holdings will no longer reward silent betrayal. We will lead with conscience, with legacy, and with accountability. The room burst into applause. Not loud at first, but it grew, and it grew real. For the first time, Lena wasn't a ghost in her own empire. She was its voice. And they were listening. The days after the brunch were a whirlwind. News outlets picked up the story. CFO ousted in corporate betrayal scandal. But Lena didn't linger on the headlines. Her focus shifted to restructuring. She moved into her new corner office, not out of vanity, but to make her presence known. No more hiding in shadows. No more watching from behind glass. But just when she thought the fire was contained, an old ember sparked. It came in a brown envelope. No return address. Slid under her office door. She opened it casually at first, thinking it was internal paperwork, but her breath caught when she pulled out the contents. 3 photographs, black and white, grainy and unmistakable. Her, younger, in a courtroom, in handcuffs. She froze. The photos were real, taken 10 years ago when she was arrested for allegedly falsifying documents while working pro bono for a nonprofit organization. The charges had been dropped, of course. The accusations were baseless, orchestrated by a board member she had tried to expose for laundering money through charity accounts. She had won that battle, but not before her name was dragged through the mud. The scandal never made it to the press, sealed and buried quietly. But someone had kept evidence. A note was clipped to the last photo, typed, no signature. I know who you are. The question is, do they? Lena didn't show the letter to Leo, not yet. She needed to think. Whoever sent this wasn't just threatening her reputation. They were testing her next move. That evening, she met Marcus in his office. He read the letter and leaned back, eyes narrowing. This is blackmail without a price. That means they don't want money. They want leverage. Or they want me gone, Lena said. Maybe they think I don't belong here. Who else knows about this? Marcus asked. Only one person who would dare use it against me. Olivia March. Marcus's face darkened. Your old rival from the charity board? I thought she vanished after the IRS raided her accounts. She did, Lena said, but people like her don't disappear. They regroup. 2 days later, Lena's suspicions were confirmed. Olivia March walked into the company's HR building, posing as a consultant for a tech startup that Carver was planning to acquire. Hair shorter, voice a little smoother. But those eyes hadn't changed. Cold, hungry, calculating. Lena watched the security footage silently. She wants something, Leo said from behind, having walked in quietly. She wants everything, Lena replied. She's trying to finish what she started 10 years ago, and this time, she's coming for the crown. Leo stepped closer. Then she'll learn the same lesson Klein did. No, Lena said firmly, her voice tight. This one's different. She knows how to destroy from within. And if we let her in, she'll tear us apart. Leo met her eyes. Then don't let her in. But it wasn't that simple. Because Olivia had already made contact with board members, with HR, even with investors, she was sowing doubt, rewriting Lena's narrative from behind the curtains. And the worst part, she had charisma. People listened. People believed. That night, Lena sat alone on the penthouse balcony, fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass, thinking. This wasn't about the company anymore. It was about memory, about legacy, about how easily a lie told with enough polish could silence the truth. But she wasn't 17 anymore. She wasn't afraid. She had buried her past once before, but this time, she would do it differently. This time, she would make sure it stayed buried, with the world watching. Lena didn't panic. She calculated. The next morning, she arrived at the office 2 hours early. No makeup, simple bun, slate gray pantsuit. Every detail screamed focus, not vanity. She reviewed every past transaction, every deal Olivia could twist, and summoned Marcus. I want a full report on Olivia's firm, she said. Corporate structure, investors, every shell company, even the damn janitorial service contracts if you find them. Marcus nodded. Already started, but there's something else. He handed her a tablet. On it was a recording, a leaked voice note Olivia sent to a potential investor. Lena Carver is a fraud. Her story is built on pity and silence. Once the board sees her real record, she'll crumble, and this empire will need a new queen. Lena's jaw tensed. She wants the boardroom seat, Marcus said. But she's forgetting something, Lena replied coldly. I've already been on fire before. She can't burn me with heat I've already survived. By noon, the boardroom was full. Olivia had orchestrated an emergency review session with half the directors. Leo stood behind Lena, silent but firm. Olivia arrived late, in crimson, bold, deliberate. She didn't greet Lena. Instead, she launched in. It's come to my attention that this company's current leadership may have misrepresented its ethical history. In the interest of shareholder integrity, I think it's necessary to revisit the vetting process, starting with Mrs. Carver's background. She slid a file across the table, the old arrest photo. Lena didn't flinch. Thank you, Ms. March, she said. Now, allow me to present Exhibit B. She pressed a button. A screen descended, displaying Olivia's own voice. This time recorded the night before at an elite charity gala. She hadn't known Marcus was present, or that he had looped in a discreet mic. I don't care if I have to bury her, Olivia had said into her whine. I want the Carver name under my thumb by Q4. The boardroom went still. Olivia's eyes widened. This is a legal recording? It's legal when said at a public event with no expectation of privacy, Marcus interjected coolly. State Code 2932.5. And this, Lena added, swiping to the next slide, is a forensic report showing that Olivia's firm, Nexvia Group, is funded by Horizon Holdings, our direct competitor, the one that tried to buy out our logistics branch last quarter. The room erupted. One board member leaned forward. Are you saying she's been sent here to destabilize the company? I'm not saying it, Lena said. I'm proving it. Olivia stood, furious. You think this is over? You have skeletons. I'll find more. You'll be finding them in a courtroom, Leo said. Security is on its way. Olivia lunged to grab the file, but two guards entered quietly. Ms. March, you're trespassing on corporate grounds under false pretenses. Please come with us. As they escorted her out, she looked back at Lena with pure hatred. You were nothing but a girl in handcuffs, she spat. Lena met her stare with ice. And now, I'm the woman writing your exit. When the room cleared, one board member clapped slowly. The others followed. Lena didn't smile. She just exhaled. The war wasn't over, but the enemy was no longer invisible. Leo wrapped his arm around her. You didn't just survive her, he whispered. You buried her. No, Lena whispered back. I buried the old me. She just gave me the shovel. But deep down, she knew there was still one twist left. One thread unresolved, and it was coming for them in the most unexpected way. The dust had barely settled. Olivia was gone, the board firmly on Lena's side, and Carver Holdings was buzzing with a rare kind of optimism. But inside Lena, a quiet throb of doubt hadn't left. It returned every time she looked at Leo, loving, loyal, but too perfect. And then, late one evening, while organizing old files in Leo's private study, she found something that froze her breath. A printed email tucked inside a leather notebook. Subject, Proposal Strategic Marriage. Her name was in the body. The words were clinical, tactical. Lena Nguyen has the public sympathy card, strong crisis management skills, and a clean image. With proper coaching and silence around her past, she could be a formidable face for the Carver brand. Recommend initiating contact through structured philanthropy. Projected outcome, marriage within 18 months. It was signed. Morgan Ellison, the company's former PR strategist, the same one Leo had quietly let go just after their wedding. Lena's knees weakened. The study felt colder. The marriage, the trust. Had it all been a plan? That night she couldn't sleep. She stared at Leo in bed, her heart pounding with betrayal. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But she waited. And at dawn, when he stirred, she said simply, "We need to talk." Leo sat up instantly, sensing the change in her tone. She tossed the email onto the bed. His face paled. "Lena, don't lie," she said. "Just tell me. Was I a project to you?" Leo exhaled, deep and long. At first, yes. The word shattered something. It wasn't my idea, he continued. After my father died, the board and PR team were circling like vultures. We needed stability. And yes, Morgan pitched you like some kind of brand strategy. I was angry about it. But I went to that charity event. I saw you in the corner, helping clean tables after your keynote. You had no makeup on, but you smiled like the world didn't owe you anything. His voice cracked. I fell in love that night. Not with the proposal, but with you. I never told you because I was afraid you'd never believe anything that came after. Lena didn't cry. Her face was unreadable. So when did it stop being strategy? The moment you put your hand on my mother's grave without saying a word, just silence, just presence. I knew then, no spreadsheet could script that kind of soul. She stood up. I need space. He nodded, pain written all over his face. For the next 3 days, Lena didn't go home. She checked into a quiet hotel under a fake name. Along with her thoughts, she relived every moment of their story, now tainted by orchestration. But then came a knock on her door. A hotel envelope. Inside, no words, just a photo. Her, 10 years ago, hugging a crying boy outside a courthouse. A scribble on the back. You saved me once when I had nothing. Let me spend my life proving that I'm worthy of that grace. Leo. She sat there for an hour, holding it. And then, for the first time in years, she cried. Not from betrayal, but because she finally realized something terrifying and true. Love can begin in falsehoods and still find its way to truth. But the decision was hers now, to return or to walk away forever. The morning light sliced through the curtains like a quiet revelation. Lena stood on the hotel balcony, barefoot, arms crossed, the city humming softly beneath her. In her hands was the photo Leo had sent. She'd stared at it all night, a younger her, barely out of her teens, comforting a boy who had just lost his mother to cancer and a father to prison. Leo Carver, before the surname had weight, before the world had expectations. She remembered that day vividly. She had handed him her juice box and sat beside him on a cold bench, saying nothing, offering presence, not pity. She never knew who he was. She had just wanted to help. Now everything came full circle. She returned home just before noon. The penthouse was silent. She found Leo in the living room, seated like a man awaiting judgment. He looked up, his eyes bloodshot but soft. She sat across from him. No anger, no tears, just the kind of stillness that demanded truth. I'm not here to talk about the beginning, she said, because I can't change how we started, and I won't waste more time resenting what you did to get here. Leo's shoulders tensed. Then why did you come back? Because while the start may have been calculated, the journey wasn't. You didn't fake the nights you stayed up with me during my panic attacks. You didn't fake the way you kissed my forehead every morning even when we fought. And you didn't fake loving me when it would have been easier not to. Leo leaned forward. I would give up the company if that's what it takes to prove. She stopped him with a raised hand. You're not giving up anything. Not the company. Not me, but things will change. She pulled a slim folder from her bag and placed it on the table. This is a revision of our marriage contract. From now on, I'm not just your wife, I'm your partner, legally, publicly, and fully. Leo blinked. You'd stay and lead with me? She smiled gently. I'm not staying because I forgive you. I'm staying because I choose us. But next time, if there is a storm, you don't go to war alone. You don't protect me by leaving me in the dark. You bring me into the fire, and we burn or rise together. Leo reached across the table, his hand trembling. She took it. No ring needed. The promise was in their grip. 1 week later, they stood side by side at the company's annual gala. Lena wore midnight blue, not to stand out, but to command. When she spoke to the crowd, there was no pretense, no performance, just power and grace. A woman's strength, she said into the mic, isn't measured by how silent she stays when disrespected, but by how she rises without losing her softness. I am here because I was underestimated. I'm still here because I refuse to let it define me. The applause was thunderous, but Leo, from across the stage, gave her only a quiet nod. He knew this was her throne now. Days later, Olivia's final statement was released from a hospital bed after a nervous breakdown. The board removed her completely. Investors rallied behind Lena. And somewhere in the city, a little girl saw her speech and whispered to her mom, "One day, I'll be like her." In the end, Lena didn't rewrite her past. She outgrew it. And when people now told her, "You look like a queen," she finally believed it. Not because of the title, the money, or the throne, but because she had earned it by choosing dignity over destruction, love over bitterness, and truth over comfort. They had laughed at her, whispered behind her back, doubted her worth because her clothes didn't sparkle and her silence didn't beg for attention. But in the end, she stood where none of them could, beside the most powerful man in the room, not as an accessory, but as an equal. They watched her take the mic, not with vengeance, but with grace. "Don't apologize to me," she said. "Apologize to every woman you've ever overlooked because she didn't look the part." Some wept, some turned away, but all of them knew they hadn't just misjudged her. They had misjudged themselves, because the crown she wore wasn't made of gold. It was made of scars, silence, and strength. And that is the kind of queen no one forgets.